Hello, friend. This is New Mommy at 40 podcast, a honest, informative, and non-judgmental podcast for those navigating to and through parenthood in their 40s. Today, we're talking all about egg freezing. And yes, it can be done after the age of 35. We're talking to the multi-talented Kellee Stewart, whom after her own egg freezing journey at 37, became a fertility advocate and warrior. She's sharing all the fertility tea and of her own journey of investing in herself and her future family. Welcome to the show, and here we go. It didn't happen in my 20s. Who cares? Now I've got all this fancy wisdom to share. Hey, I've got this baby, you're getting the best of me, 'cause I'm a new mommy at 40. Our guest today is just so dope that I'm going to read her entire bio. Yes, that's how amazing she is. I'm giving her her flowers today. She is a writer, producer, and actress who began her film and television career playing opposite Bernie Mac in Sony Pictures' 2005 hit movie, Guess. She is known for her various roles on television, including Ava DuVernay's Cherish the Day, Chicago Med, Killing It, All American, The Soul Man, and On My Block, just to name a few. She is a successful fertility blogger and the creator and host of Warrior Wednesdays, a live interactive fertility talk show focused on reproductive health told from the Black experience. Her egg freezing journey was featured in OWN Network's documentary, Eggs Over Easy, alongside Andra Day. And without further ado, I present to you the illustrious Kellee Stewart. Kellee, thank you so much for coming on the show. She's our first guest of season 2. I had to start it off because I feel like I want to say that we're like sisters talking about this subject of egg freezing, but I don't know if at this point people see us as aunties.
Right. They don't know. No, I rebuke that. I'm not an auntie yet. I will not be an auntie to the public. That will never happen.
Right.
She will stay fly.
Okay.
Before
Well,
that
no,
happens.
we can be fly aunties. We are fly.
Well, we can. But I want to preserve my youth as much as possible, the same way I preserve my eggs. So I'm just holding on.
Boom. Okay. So your sisters are coming at you today.
Yes.
Very impassioned about the subject of egg freezing. And ironically, I have not, and I will tell you why I'm so passionate about it, because I haven't. Kellee has. So if you haven't tuned into Warrior Wednesday, please do so. It is an amazing opportunity to get a wealth of information from all these amazing subject matter experts and to hear her story. So I wanted to ask you if you could share with the audience here, what led you to start Warrior Wednesday? What is your story?
Well, I was in a relationship for 7 years, and when that didn't work out, he left for the last time, because when you're in those kinds of relationships, you break up several times before the final time.
Yeah.
And it was on a Sunday, and as soon as he closed the door, I'm a woman of God. I'm a woman of faith and spirit. And I heard the God in me say, go freeze your eggs. And it shocked me because I didn't cry. I didn't scream because he was gone. I literally looked up and said, God, was that you? Huh? And I thought about it that night. And I said, okay, I'm going to call my gynecologist in the morning, ask for a referral. And God, if this is you, then it will flow. I just know that whatever I ask here, it'll go smoothly. And my gynecologist gave me a referral. I called the fertility clinic, which was in walking distance from my house, actually. And they said, well, to bring you in for a consultation, you need to be on your cycle. And I happened to be on my cycle. And They said, what day of your cycle? And they said, be here on Wednesday. So that's how I knew that this was God's spirit in me and that I was doing the right thing for me. And I went and I had a consultation. I found out I was a good candidate for freezing my eggs. I flew my mom out. I decided on the time to do it. And I successfully froze 29 eggs in one cycle, which is not normal, which is not the average. but it was my number. And I was almost 38 years old when I did that. And then I saw a lot of things in the media that didn't represent what cryopreservation was, that gave false information, like we don't freeze eggs over age 35. That's not true. And it bothered me. And I wound up calling my fertility specialist. And this is a few years after I froze, having a panic attack of like whether or not my eggs were still going to be viable. And, you know, you go to the grocery store, you get a carton of eggs, there's a sell by date, like, is there a fertilized by date, that kind of thing. And when they reassured me of the science, the embryologist on the phone with me said, don't worry, a lot of women call here panicking, even after they've had a successful procedure. And when I heard that, it really upset me. And I wrote a movie about it, being an actor and a writer, and sold it to Lifetime Network. And in the process of developing it with A&E and Lifetime, COVID hit. So once COVID hit, it got pushed and pushed and pushed. And then I began Warrior Wednesdays, to answer your question. That's kind of a long answer, but that's how it came to be. I wanted to speak to the audience that I wrote the film for. I wanted to speak to myself, really. And I didn't know that it was going to become the platform that it became. I didn't know I'd be talking to women and men in the Black community, people of color, specifically about their fertility health. I didn't know I'd be talking to people in Europe. I didn't know it would be what it is and what I'm so grateful for what it is. And I certainly didn't know when I froze my eggs that they would be used in this purpose right now, but I'm really grateful that they are.
And we are all grateful because you've brought some amazing, amazing guests to the table and answered questions. I think people come to your show and don't even know what question they're going to ask. And then they hear everything and they're like, wait, I didn't know that. I have a question. And you're so engaging and so charismatic. It makes people feel very comfortable to ask the questions that they want to ask and get some amazing answers. They get more than they bargain for, I think, when they come. And, you know, when I saw your show for the first time, what happened is I've actually known Kellee for a while through another mutual friend of ours, her other sister. And
yes,
I kind of knew the story, but I didn't know the story. But what was funny is, I don't know if it was around the same time, but I had the exact same story of the relationship for the exact same time of being in it, with the multiple breakups. I know you don't know this. So
right.
I was just like, wait a minute, that was me. That was me. And I was kicking myself that I did, as you did, run to the fertility clinic. And actually, I didn't even know it was I knew it was kind of a thing because I had known that when I was really starting out in acting, when I was back in New York, where I am now, because we met in LA. But when I was first kind of pursuing it, I remember backstage always having this advertisement for like, freeze your eggs or donate eggs, egg donation. And I was just like, oh, yeah, maybe. So I kind of knew a little bit of the science in that sense, but I didn't see it from a way of like in a way to ensure my future until I was like, oh, you took all my time. He didn't take my time. I stayed there. I stayed too long. I did that. But at the time, before I grew, I remember feeling so resentful that I wasted these good egg years. So I ran to the fertility clinic. I listened. I went to the informational. They actually did some beta testing on me. And I just heard what I wanted to hear. And then I left. I couldn't believe I did that. Now, you know, listening to you, I was like, oh my gosh, how did I just walk out of there? I heard, oh, you're 36. Let's see, your egg reserve looks good. The count looks good. You should. No one tested quality quite at the time. They didn't test on me, but I was like, okay. And then she put out a number, told the number of what it would cost, and I panicked. And I said, thank you very much. I just wanted to hear I had eggs still. Bye. And then I left. So it's the opposite. And so the reason why I wanted to bring you here was to show two sides of the story of how it could go and how I pray doesn't go for you, because now I have this amazing kid that truly just came out of God's grace after miscarriage and then this crazy fast romance. And since then have had miscarriages and haven't been able to. And I just completed 2 IVF rounds that were unsuccessful, not because of my egg count. Like I had great number of eggs, actually, surprisingly for my age, but the quality was not good. So let's talk about what because I think I will call you a subject matter expert on this. I know you're not a doctor. I know you're not a physician. So we're going to put that disclaimer out there. Kellee is not a doctor. However, she a doctor to me. I'm just saying. So what are the things that you've heard from your audience in terms of fear when it comes to egg freezing that you've been able to dispel over the last, time that you've been doing this?
The first thing would be, absolutely. The first thing would be what you mentioned in your story, which is cost. The fertility specialist gave a big number to you, you panicked, and then you walked out the door. And which is a completely valid response, by the way, because there's not a lot of insurance carriers that cover cryopreservation. And it's changing. We're still fighting for it, but it's an expensive process to do. And what I always tell people is I always ask, women in particular, anyone with ovaries or however you identify, how many baby showers do you go to a year? How many baby showers do you go to every 5 years or so? Bridal showers, first birthday parties. How much money have you spent gifting people that have had a child, that have successfully brought a life into this world? Because what happens in society is that we do not reward people that are on the journey. We do not give them the support that we give someone that's on their 8th month of pregnancy, that's throwing a party to eat pizza and play games with diapers. Why don't we do that? Why don't we normalize, supporting people in the IVF journey, such as yourself, or the egg freezing journey? So my answer to that is throw yourself an egg shower. Yeah. I always tell people that are scared of that price tag to throw yourself an egg shower. Get the cucumber sandwiches, get the games ready, and register at paypal.com or venmo.com. And people will say to me sometimes, well, who's going to come to that? I'm like, people that love you. People that love you. And you deserve the support, financially and otherwise, for the life choices that we celebrate other people for doing. You're just on the journey. You need it more, actually. Yeah. So that's one thing that I've learned in that space. Egg quality versus quantity is a thing. And we often, first of all, our education system does not teach people with ovaries about follicular atresia, which is why we lose so many follicles and eggs. We are born with as many eggs as we're ever going to have. We do not make more. These are things that sometimes the average adult woman doesn't actually know. And as we rise in age, the quality of our eggs can decrease. And that can be problematic for chromosome numbers, for implantation into the endometrium lining, if an egg is fertilized. So there's a lot to know there, which is why if someone was going to choose to freeze their eggs, the earlier the better, for sure. However, I always tell people that are interested in this process, no matter what age you are, get a fertility diagnostic test, which is what you got, which is what Victoria explained. And it's usually a blood test. In my case, it was a blood test and an ultrasound where they check your AMH, your anti-Müllerian hormone levels, and your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone levels. That gives a fertility specialist, which is a doctor that has 3 or 5 years more training than your gynecologist. A gynecologist does not freeze eggs, and people also need to know that. A fertility specialist does. They have more training, in fertility and fertility procedures. But those numbers from your AMH and your FSH give an idea of your egg reserve, meaning about how many eggs you have left for your age. It is a battle of averages. They're not going to be able to tell you you have
Right.
2,500 eggs left. That's not how it
Right.
works.
They can't.
It's within your age range. Where do you fall, below average, average, or above average with egg quantity? That does not
Right.
mean quality.
Nope.
And that's why the sooner the better. However, getting a fertility diagnostic test gives you an understanding of where you are. And if you are a healthy person, I say freeze whatever age your heart desires if being a mother one day is something that you want.
Yes, because yesterday's day eggs will always be better than today's.
Yep, absolutely.
Always. I don't care how
Absolutely.
it's not a matter of faith. It is not, it's just the science in terms of the egg quality. Yesterday's eggs are always better than today's. So if you're listening to this, even if you are 40 and you have not yet had a child or you're thinking about having another one, talk about freezing your eggs today. As I was listening to you, I was thinking, why is it not the norm for someone to have both a gynecologist and a reproductive specialist early enough for someone to know, maybe in their early 30s, so that they can go ahead and get the most quality eggs that they have a opportunity of getting? I don't get it.
Well, you're raising a really good question. I was in a documentary called Eggs Over Easy on
Yes.
OWN, and one of the things that they used in the trailer for that was me saying, why aren't women offered fertility testing as part of their gynecological care? Because the same way that we go in for a pap smear to be tested for STDs, to have our breast exam done and things like that, we should also be offered, at minimum offered, the opportunity to get a fertility diagnostic test to know what we are working with. As to the why that doesn't happen, I don't have an answer that would satisfy anybody because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Whether it's just coming
Yeah.
from an old playbook of, the same thing that they say, if you want to have a baby, try for a year. And then if it's not working, we'll send you to a fertility specialist. Well, then you lose a year worth of eggs. You lose a year of a younger fertility age where you could have been doing rounds of freezing eggs, or whatever you may have needed. So I think what we have to do is really take control of our fertility health, which is why it's so great that you have this podcast, that you're speaking to people from a personal perspective and bringing on guests that have stories to share. Because without these conversations, people won't know, for instance, when you go to a doctor and any physician, you can book a double appointment. If you have health insurance, and you can write down the questions and make sure that you have the time that you really want to dedicate to your health as people that have ovaries and or wombs, because some women are not born with a womb. Some women are not born with ovaries. There's so much that we don't talk about and that we don't know. But if any of those things are working for you and you don't even know if you want to have a kid, or one day you do want to have a kid, asking those questions very early on about, can I get a fertility diagnostic test? How much would a procedure like this cost? Can I have a referral for a fertility specialist? And how do I plan ahead? We seem to only cross the fertility bridge when we get to it, when we're trying to get pregnant and it's not working. And then we panic. And then we find out, oh my God, I've had fibroids this whole time. I've had endometriosis, or adenomyosis.
PCOS or anything. Yeah.
All of those things, sometimes even painful intercourse. I knew a woman who would always tell me that, this guy is too big. That's why we broke up. He was too big. No, she had adenomyosis and she did not know that. Intercourse is not supposed to be painful. Periods are not supposed to be long and heavy. That is an indication of an underlying condition. So there's a lot of health we don't know. And we need to take control of it now.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask if you could just walk us through what your process was of freezing, of cryopreservation.
Certainly. So I had to get all the medication, which you pay for separately. And
Mm-hmm.
just so people know also, because sometimes I like to make sure that I'm transparent. People think when you're an actress and they see you on TV, she has tons of money to do this. She can do this as many times as she wants. I got a credit card, y'all, that, when they send in those advertisements for a new credit card,
Mm-hmm.
I just called all of them to see who had the largest amount of credit that they were going to offer me. And I just got a new card and I put the whole egg freeze on that.
Boom.
So it wasn't like I went into a big old bank. So don't let the celebrity fool you. And I had to also be resourceful and find a way to pay for this over time versus at one lump sum.
So
But in terms
smart.
of the process, yeah, where there's a will, there's a way.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Where there's a will, there's a way. I had to give myself injections in my abdomen for about 14 days straight. Those injections are timed, along with the fact that every day, just about, I had to get a blood test and ultrasound because the fertility specialist is not only counting the follicles, but they're also measuring them because the job of cryopreservation, or what Victoria went through with IVF, which cryopreservation is IVF as well. It's the first step to it. Is they have to mimic nature as much as possible. So those injections, they carry medication that stimulate the hormones that I talked about earlier, the
Mm-hmm.
FSH in particular, your follicle stimulating hormone. So in a regular ovulation cycle, if I were to release 10 follicles and one of them matured to an egg and went to the fallopian tubes, this medication is going to help me release maybe 25, 30 follicles and all of them maturing into eggs. And when they are ready, you take a trigger shot. So during the doctor visits, as they're checking and measuring, taking your blood and looking at all the tests that they need to, they will tell you specifically and accurately when you have to take your trigger shot. For some, it's progesterone in the booty. For some, it's in the stomach. It's based off of whatever your case was. And because I was banking a lot of eggs at the
Mm-hmm.
time of the medication, I didn't have to do the progesterone shot in the butt. I had to do another trigger shot. I think about 12 hours from your trigger shot, I was in the medical facility getting ready to get them extracted. And it's all timed. If you mess up that trigger shot, you done messed up that round.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are looking to freeze your eggs, it's something that I feel you should do at a time where you can really dedicate yourself to those 14 or so days to focus on it. If you're busy at work, this is something you need to take off of work for because
Yeah.
you don't want to miss that medication and waste your money and not yield the eggs that you deserve to yield.
Yeah, and we also have to remember too that your the follicle count can also change per cycle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what can also affect that is stress. And I'm here to tell you, definitely, even when you're trying right now, just get your stress under control because it can be something that can ruin a cycle as well. So we're not here to scare you. We're not here to stress you out. We're only here to give you as much information so that you can plan ahead. Because we want this to be, I guess the word is not necessarily easy for you, but to have a flow so you know what to expect. So thank you for taking us through that cycle. And for those of you, like Kellee said, it is literally the first phase of IVF, what she went through. The only difference now is this mama to be that you see here is basically the other half of that would be not just the retrieval, but then the actual implantation of an embryo that would be fertilized with the man that will come into her life and be the daddy to her children. Because I know that's what that's what your future holds and what you'd like. And then if you are doing it alone, the donor of your choice, and that's how you would get your sperm, and that's how they would fertilize the egg, and then it would become an embryo, and the embryo would then be transferred to your uterus. So it's the first half. So if you've gone through IVF, or if you know anyone who's gone through IVF, it's basically the first half of that journey. So as I was listening to you, I was thinking I wanted to see if we could talk about choosing an RE. How do you choose the right reproductive endocrinologist, do you think?
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, I interviewed a couple of people after I understood that I was a good candidate for it. And typically, I like to work with female physicians of color as well. But in my area, and who was available to me at the time, I wound up actually working with a man. And here's why: because he had an ego about how many eggs he gets. He was very boastful, and it was almost like a competition with himself and with the other doctors in the clinic.
Okay.
That he was the top leader. I get the most eggs. And for my personality, because it's a personal decision, it's a financial decision, and it's a spiritual decision. And I'm from Philly, y'all. So ego and I get the most eggs and can't nobody beat me is like a love language.
I was about to say, it's your love language. You're like, go get them. Let's go get them.
Go get my eggs.
Get my eggs.
I don't want anybody soft, okay? I don't want anybody precious. I want you to feel like I am going to come out of here a champion.
Yes.
And that is why I went with him. He was also very fun during the process. Because I was coming out of a breakup, and like, first of all, this is nobody's ideal start to pregnancy or family. Let's be clear here.
Correct. You're right.
It's nobody's ideal start, but I do believe that you have to reframe how you tell the story. Like, I have this awesome story to tell my future child about freezing my eggs and writing a movie and going to the Empire State Building to light it up orange in the name of National Infertility Awareness Week, and to talking with you, talking with Victoria. My child has been spoken about before they were even defrosted. I mean, it's amazing. But I bring that up to say that though it's not ideal, your purpose in doing it will be revealed to you later.
Yes.
If it's something that you want to do, trust and believe it will serve not just a purpose of you hopefully having a child in the future, because egg preservation does not guarantee, but it does give you, as you mentioned earlier, a good amount of insurance that you have some time. But just like Victoria has this podcast from your experiences with secondary infertility that you're dealing with now, and getting pregnant and miscarriages, it will serve a purpose down the line, so much bigger. So yes, I went with an egotistical doctor, and when I woke up, he told me I had 32 eggs, and he was very proud of himself.
Nice.
And 29 were viable and successfully frozen. You will always lose a certain number. It's not guaranteed. They will all be viable, and they will all survive the freeze. So the more you get, the better. And if you need to bank more, then most doctors would suggest more cycles until they get a number that they feel like they can get a live birth from.
Yes. And it's important I'm glad that you brought that up about it doesn't guarantee you. So we have to be clear. And it's great that you said that, because I was going to say it too. We're not ensuring you that you will have a viable pregnancy and a viable delivery from egg freezing. It just gives you that opportunity to try. Because the fact is, for me, for my story, I've done 2 rounds, and that's nothing in the IVF world. There are people who've done 5, 6. So I'm not here to say I've done all this, work, but I've done 2. And in that 2, I had the first round, I think I had 17. Then the second, no, it was 27, the first one. But they were overstimulated, a lot of them. So I lost more than half. So now we were talking about 7 that went through, that actually were viable to at least fertilize. And only 2 made it to the blastocyst stage, which
Blastocyst
is
stage, yes.
when it's actually like an embryo forming and dividing cells, and neither of them passed the testing for normal chromosomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the second round, I wasn't as stimulated. And you should know the first round is always kind of like an experiment, because depending on who you go to, right? Because they have to see how your body reacts. They have the test results to kind of give them a roadmap of what they're going to do with you, your protocol. But by the second one, they know your body if you're with the same specialist. And for me, I wasn't overstimulated, but I still got to 2 that were not normal. So it's important to know that. It's also important to interview, like Kellee said. Interview your specialist, your RE, because I thought that I did, but I didn't ask the right questions. What is your success rate? Is a very important question. That's basically what Kellee was saying. Philly girl noticed, oh, you're going to get him? All right, I like that.
Well,
it's nice. I mean, because he was confident and he had the numbers to back him up.
Yes. And it's good to note that the only healthcare industry that is required to report their success rate to the CDC is fertility clinics.
I didn't know that.
They are required to, and they are the only ones, because for a very long time, all of this was considered medically as experimental. It no longer is, but still the CDC requires fertility clinics and reproductive endocrinologists to report their success rates. Well, that works good for you, the patient, because then you can actually check to see what fertility clinics in your area and what doctors specifically have the highest success rate of live births. That's what you want to look for.
Is that through just going to cdc.gov, or how would someone find that?
Yeah, you can go to cdc.gov and just and look around and until you find somebody, or call the CDC yourself and say, who do I talk to? Where do I find the information about a specific fertility clinic? Because they have to actually report it to the CDC.
That's good to know. Yeah, I wish I had done that, because I had an amazing doctor. The actual specialist herself was really attentive, really knew her stuff, but the staff was not as professional. So I wasn't getting calls. I think the first time I was waiting to find out about my little M babies, who made it through. I'm waiting. You told me I have just 7. I'm waiting. It took them 2.5 weeks for someone to call me. What was supposed to be only like 5 days. It was insane. And if I'm telling you, girl, when faith is the only thing that kept me sane, I just kept praying and praying. I'm like, God, you got this. Calm me down. I kept calling and calling. So it's really important that you feel comfortable, not only with the doctor, the staff. How are they making you feel when you call? Is your phone, is your call important? Are the messages going through? Are you getting return calls? I think it's important. That's my little PSA for my personal experience.
And I would also ask you, and this is a sidebar, y'all, to the conversation we're having, but since I'm talking to my sis here,
yes.
since I'm talking to my friend here, in going through the last 2 rounds that you went through, and that there was some chromosomal abnormalities as to why that they didn't implant, did they ask you about your diet and what to change and whatever environmental things you might be around that could be causing, if it is an egg quality thing? Did they ask you about those things?
Nope. No one has asked. Beautiful friends and sisters like yourself have asked. I have a network of great women and people who identify as women, as doulas and yoga practitioners, everyone that's in the know of just being healthy and being aware of just wellness, have been like, what are you eating? Are you on an anti-inflammatory diet? Are you working out? Have you checked your house for any formaldehyde? I mean, just all these amazing questions. Our mutual friend Camille was like, listen, I cleared everything out of my house, plastics that I didn't know of, PBA. Yeah, I want plastics. I want them out of my house, all that stuff. So again, we're not experts, we're not doctors, we're not physicians. Look it up on your own and find out all the list of things that you could look through, household products that you have in your home can also contribute. Environmental is huge. Diet is huge. And since then, I've been on an anti-inflammatory diet, which actually helps with my PCOS that I didn't quite know about. So shout out to Strong Wellness, to Tony and Earl Strong for putting me onto that. So it's been really helpful. So now I feel more confident probably going into another round because now everything, all the boxes are checked. But again, my RE did not ask me about any of that.
Right. And that's why what you're doing here with this podcast and the work that you're doing by being so transparent and having guests on that you make feel comfortable enough to be transparent with you is so important, because somebody is going to be listening to this and not realizing that, oh my God, I shouldn't be eating out of plastic. No, you should not. I should not be drinking out of plastic. Not if you're trying to preserve your eggs or have the highest egg quality that you can. That there are environmental things as well as nutritional things that you can do to improve the quality of your eggs. What people with ovaries do not often know is that your eggs start off as a follicle. A follicle is a fluid-filled sac that has an egg cell right in the middle of it. It's one little teeny tiny cell. And to my knowledge, to my scientific knowledge, it is the only human cell that is visible to the naked eye. There is no other human cell that is visible to the naked eye except that of the egg cell within a follicle, which is pretty freaking amazing.
Wow.
How miraculous we are. So you have to understand how delicate that is, how perfect it needs to be for all of these things to happen. So really, because we do not make eggs the way that people with sperm continuously make sperm every day, all day long, we have to be extra mindful of our nutrition and our environment if we're looking to maintain the best egg quality as possible. Counter to that, people with sperm also need to be very specific about their diets, about how much heat is on the testicles, the clothes that they wear, because in all cases of somebody with sperm and somebody with eggs trying to conceive and it's not happening, it's unsuccessful, 1/3 is male factor infertility. 1/3 is female factor. Another is unexplained. So though women often wear the face of infertility, and it's often the finger is pointed at us, she's too old, she's infertile, she has fibroids, it's often pointed at us, but the exact same amount is pointed at somebody with sperm. But we don't hear that in general society.
No.
And so oftentimes women walk around with shame, feeling like they are the problem as to why they're not getting pregnant. And in fact, it could actually be their partner. I have a friend, Dacia Williams, who wrote a book about this. You know Dacia?
Just from following Warrior Wednesdays, of course.
Well, Dacia wrote a book about this. And one thing I want to mention while we're talking about this is that if you are trying to get pregnant in a heterosexual scenario, that you have to know that like men make sperm, but it's inside of semen, right? So sometimes the swimmers don't go fast enough or they're not potent enough. And the best thing to do if you're trying to get pregnant and it's unsuccessful is have the man tested first. It is far less invasive and it is far less expensive. Oftentimes people will go right to the fertility clinic and the woman will be the first one up and they're going to put the dye in you. They're going to do all of the things and it's going to cost all of the money, only to find out it might not be you, boo.
Yeah. I just
so
told
go
my
with the
husband
cheaper, less invasive option first. Cancel that out, or see if that could be the problem before you check yourself.
Yep. That's such good information. And it's true. You don't hear about that very often. I think there's been so much time invested on exploring the female factor in this that it's been neglected. So it's really good that you mentioned that. What do you want your baby to get out of this one day? Let's talk about your baby,
Wow.
because I know I'm gonna meet this baby one
Oh
day.
yes, you're gonna meet this baby, and we're probably gonna cry when it happens, and I
Oh,
might cry
definitely.
answering this question, to be
Oh,
honest. Um, I want this baby to know how much I wanted her, and I say her because in my spirit I feel like I'm gonna have a daughter. You can see. I don't know if your audience can see, but I have like my baby booties
yes.
right here. I buy little outfits for Faith. A friend of mine gave me a crystal egg, and inside of it are black mustard seeds
Oh,
to keep the faith. But I want her to know how much she was wanted. I want her to know that her spirit served a bigger purpose before she even got here, that my desire to meet her, to bring her into this world, became a platform for myself and her together to open up to women and to men and to hopefully help someone. But along the way, it healed me, it
mm,
healed mommy, because in the journey of waiting, we can get very weary,
yeah.
or we can find purpose in our patience. It's really up to us. It's up to what story we want to tell. And I want her to know that I told a powerful story about her. And also, and you mentioned this earlier, me wanting to wait for the right man, and that is true. And that is my decision, and that is what I'm doing. And so thank you for confirming and affirming that in me. But I say this often on Warrior Wednesdays. You may have heard me say it, because one day it really hit me that I wasn't just waiting for him to have the baby.
Mm,
I did not know I was waiting to be a part of this community of the most powerful, inspiring, resilient people that are on the journey to having a child, a second child, a third child, and that come across obstacles, whether it's fibroids, endo, PCOS, failed IVFs, miscarriages, whatever it may be, that I am somehow in this club now. They call it the worst club, but with the best members.
it's so
And I
true.
remember telling people on Warriors, I thought I was waiting for a man. I was waiting for y'all,
Mm,
because now I can't imagine having a child without, see, I'm going to start crying,
mhm.
without these group of warriors, Victoria included, gathered around me. How amazing it is that God said, you're going to wait, and we're going to fill it with something bigger than you, so that it's not just about my testimony, but it's about everybody's testimony that I'm blessed to encounter, and hopefully keep their stories safe and encouraging for somebody
Yes.
else.
Yes. And what a village you have. I'm telling you, this baby is so loved and so prayed for, and will be nurtured from all like corners of the world with all the people that you have just blessed with your platform. Kellee, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Who you've blessed with your platform and your voice. And I think it's very powerful that you've used your position with the gift that you've been given, the gifts, plural, because you're so talented, multi-talented, to take the time to do this, because you could have been private about it, you know? Um, but the fact that you chose to share it with all of us, we're all better for it. So
Thank
we
you.
we thank you so much. Love you very much. Thank you for coming.
I love you too.
Oh, thank you, Kellee, for coming by and just dropping some gems on us. I know I learned something. I hope you did. And I hope together we've inspired you to just take that time and invest in yourself. If this is for you, to freeze your eggs. And don't let the age deter you. Talk to your physicians, talk to your gynecologist or your reproductive specialist and see if this option is still something on the table for you. You can find Kellee at www.warrior-wednesdays.com or at Instagram at KStew, that's KSTEW222. Don't forget to subscribe, follow wherever you're listening to this or watching this. And remember, on Tuesdays now, we actually get together on Facebook for a live virtual meetup called The Corner Table, where we discuss the last episode together and get to know each other. So please go to Facebook or Instagram at New Mommy at 40 to find out when that's happening, so you can go ahead and reserve your place at the table. And I can't wait to see you again next week. Please take care of yourself and each other.